What's going on, Cancer? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to the Chariot Friends. Justin here, and how are you feeling? The moon's in Capricorn. This is I find whenever the moon is in an earth sign, even when she may not be at her best shape in Capricorn, this is a great place for the moon to get grounded and for her to really kind of see, even though we're being receptive in the earth energy, I find that we can take the material, the things outside of us to get a clear view of what's going on internally with us. And I find that Capricorn energy can bring maybe a bit of somber energy, but it's a sobering energy, I think, as well, that Capricorn energy, having that Saturn influence can bring in. But we'll get into all that here in a moment. But if you're new here, again, my name is Justin. And know that when you're coming across this video, you're in sync with the moon, and she loves that. But this is also a place for you if you happen to have Cancer in your placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, maybe Saturn, wherever. This one's for you. Excuse me. And I do tarot card spreads based out that lovely luminary. Where was she at? She was all over the place. The good old moon. Yeah, I've been just kind of been keeping an eye on her. Been keeping track of just like the moon rises and when the moon sets. And I'm doing this fasting thing right now during the void of courses. And this one coming up here soon between Aquarius and Pisces. She is in the sky for a long time. And I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do some either some early time eating or some late night snacking. We'll see how that's gonna look. But yes, it's get out there, track the moon, see what she's doing, observe when she's in the sky. It's always great to just connect with the clock that's going on up there. It's I was doing some cloud gazing the other day. I got in the Queen of Swords. It's a whole thing. But I'll talk about what sign she's in, what phase she's in, when she's going void of course, just all them lunar shenanigans, which we'll talk about in the next one. And just so you're all aware, this is a general reading, not a one-to-one. So take what fits into your story, discard the rest, and everything will be dope, Cancer. Now, let's jump into it. Cause yeah, this is we're getting towards the end of March, and it has been a lot of just different planetary opportunities that have been coming up. A lot of energies coming through. I don't know about you, but when the moon was in that one between Libra and Scorpio, that void of course period of time was between 19 degrees and 20 degrees. That was back. I'll give you a date here. Hold on. That was between the oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing. It was between Sunday and Tuesday, the 16th through the 18th. The energy just dipped. It was especially that Sunday. Yeah, I remember it was just like a boom. It was like a noticeable thing, and some people I've been talking with too had noticed that. So yeah, what's been coming up for you during this void? Of course, how have you, if you've been paying attention to that period of time, how has that maybe you've noticed some things, maybe where you've needed a bit more time to sleep, or maybe you need a bit more time to eat, or whatever that might be looking like for you. So it's just been kind of interesting to watch there. But depending on when you're watching this, or before we get into all this, happy Saturn Day. While we're getting all this, get serious for a moment. Saturn is associated with Saturdays. And Saturn, I find that the days of Saturn are really great for one. This doesn't just have to be all just rules and restrictions, which are very Saturnian things, but Saturn gives things form. So this would be a great time for building things, for coming up with any sort of planning that you need to get prepared. Maybe you need to. We're working a little bit now. It's maybe you need to get a work proposal done, or maybe a presentation, or maybe you just are working on some sort of craft. But I find that Saturn, or maybe you've been meaning to learn a language or something. It's Saturn days or hours can be those really great motivators where it's just all right, I do definitely Saturn hours I've used as just motivators to if I've been just kind of procrastinating for a little bit, and it's just Saturn's looking. let me get to work. So those are just some ways that I personally like working with kind of Saturn. But also too, one way that I also like working with this energy is thinking about my relationship with Saturn. Where is Saturn transiting currently in my chart? And are there any sort of aspects that it's forming, whether it be through exact aspect or maybe through whole sign, what that's been kind of looking like, how those themes have been coming up. And I also too, I've been doing these little projects where I'm working with all of my different planetary returns, And so I'll look at like my Saturn return chart and see what energies were coming up for that, and really be thinking about it. Really puts things into a perspective, like, okay, what do I want to, how does this energy look in the next 30 years? How is that manifesting? What am I building in this little sphere of space? And it really does change up how you participate in this journey. It gives a different sense. It really just gives it a concrete form here. I've been in this really just kind of exploratory phase here as of late, and it's been yielding some very useful results. So those are just some tips and things that I personally like doing. Now, this is appropriate here. We're going to keep the Saturnian thing going, because depending on when you're watching this, the moon is going to enter into Capricorn on the 22nd of March, and that's going to happen at early. This is going to happen at 12:29 a.m., and that's going to be Pacific time. And we'll talk about the last quarter phase, so that's going to happen like exactly 4 hours later. But when you talk about just Capricorn, they are ruled by Saturn, so hence why we're keeping the Saturn things going. And they're the cardinal earth sign. They are receptive or yin in nature. And that's interesting with the earth signs, because they are really great with the material. Very first and foremost, I like to think of, whereas Cancer, the opposite of Capricorn, where Cancer is that first initial feeling where the intuition maybe first blossoms, that initial connection to source, the connection to everything. Capricorn is the first materialization of that. That would be like literally you coming into being. That would be a Capricorn type of thing. We receive these sort of like, okay, I was feeling this is what I want. I want to have a Cancer sun, Gemini moon, Leo, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter. So what does that look like? And then bam, Capricorn is initiating that. So it's interesting. Like there's a passivity, but there's also a initiatory aspect of Capricorn as well. And theirs are things that are with that Saturnian nature. They're building things that are, one, it's a heavy responsibility. I mean, just thinking about the body, just in general, but all the things that you take care of, that the things that you materialize, whether it be actually what you've built or what you've invested in or what you've bought, these are your responsibilities now. And what are you doing with them? And how are they shaping your world? And that's where I find, the moon, it's tricky there in Capricorn, because sometimes when we're in those emotions, or, we don't want to deal, or how do I want to put this? I find Capricorn is a little different than Cancer, because they're not so focused on the emotions. They are more kind of tied up in the material things. And so we're looking outside of ourselves to fix stuff. And where you do want to make sure that you're taking care of your responsibilities, you do want to make sure to check inwardly as well. There's a balance that comes with Cancer and Capricorn, but both, when you think about how they work together, the opposites do work very well. And that's going to be something I think we're going to be talking about a bit in the hexagram as well, this opposition sort of energy. But that's why the moon does a bit tricky here, is just because like sometimes maybe the moon in Capricorn could begin something because of a feeling, or something like that, or not begin something because it's too hard, because it feels too insurmountable. And so then it leads to and then the moon can get depressed in Capricorn, and then it just feels like, oh, I'll never accomplish anything. It gets really heavy, or can get really heavy. So that's just some things to watch out for with the moon in Capricorn. But I think with that discipline where it's like, okay, yeah, I have these goals, I have these things that I want to manifest, these things that I want to get or whatever. I know that it's going to take time. I was actually just talking with someone about this, where I'm getting, like, I have a lot of stuff geared towards financials, and I got a financial plan. I'm thinking, like, in the next couple of years, I'm going to be at this spot, and I think that's a realistic goal. Yeah, you could either look at it as like, oh my gosh, a couple of years is a long time, or gosh, oh my goodness, only a couple of years, that's great. And then we're going to move beyond to the races. So, it's a matter of perspective too. I think that comes through here with that Capricorn, but just some things to think about when the moon's here. But let's talk about the last quarter energy, because that's going to be happening at 4:29 a.m. That's going to be just like I said, 4 hours later, unless I got a chart for you here. So let's go ahead and get over to that, because the last quarter phase is when you gotta look at the moon here, chanting Cap. And then we have this fiesta that's going over here in Aries. I'm just going to go ahead and circle this whole party here. And then we got the sun here. But the last quarter is when the sun and the moon are squaring one another. And the squares are a call to like action. They could lead to some frustration sometimes, some tension. The energy is needing to move. Something's feeling maybe exacerbated, or that's what I find the squares can be motivating. Where they are maybe a bit harder, it might require some work, a bit of more courage, whatever that might be looking like. But I do think that they are something that really can help you get a lot done. I think with the square energy. But it's interesting here with this last quarter moon, because I with the sun and the moon, or excuse me, with the sun and the moon, with the sun and Venus. Let me kind of clean this up a little bit. The sun and Venus are approaching each other as this last square is happening. So, or this last quarter is happening. And the last quarter is about releasing things. It's about cleansing. This could be about expressing forgiveness, letting go, reflection, good for just taking responsibility for what has happened, what for the things that you succeeded in, the things that you could have done better, for tying up loose ends. And this could be where that sun coming into that conjunction with Venus, who's retrograde. You could be looking at any sort of relationships that you've had and maybe that you've wanted to revise, or where you've been feeling like, I don't want to nurture this thing anymore. Where I may have started this thing, it may have reached its peak. Like, for example, here, let's say, because with this chart, we're working with someone who would have a Capricorn rising. This is happening between your first and fourth house. So maybe there's something actually quite literal that you've been putting off in the home space that's been needing to get taken care of, or maybe there's a conversation with a parent that's needing to be happening, or maybe you as a parent are facing new responsibilities, new sort of things coming into conflict, maybe with like your kids or something like that. There's some sort of thing that you're maybe needing to just deal with that's been kind of brewing over this lunar cycle here. Maybe it's reached ahead at the full moon, and now that we've had some time to cool off, that eclipse has kind of, and it's still going to be, the energies are still going to be active for a little while, but now we're maybe in a more tempered, grounded place with the moon in Capricorn to just be like, hey, maybe you take the initiative for an apology, or maybe there's something going on with a neighbor. Maybe there's like who knows? Maybe there's like some sort of property thing where you like, oh, hey, I'm going to build this thing on my land. And then it turns out it peeks over into your property. And now you got to take some kind of initiative. Maybe you've been putting it off and now it's time to go deal with this, whatever that might be. Look, I'm just kind of throwing out some general examples. Or it could be like you want to change your own personal foundation. Maybe you've noticed a certain habit that you've been meaning to let go that's become a part of your foundation that you're wanting to remove and then replace it with something else. So again, look to the houses that this is applying through the connection with the moon. That can give you a lot more specific about what's going on. But in general here, we all have these things that we want to do, that we want to accomplish, that we want to embody. And I think that this one is looking at the things that you've been attracting, your relationships with certain, whatever things that have been maybe impeding your process. Maybe this is your working environment. Maybe this is your home space. Maybe you found you're not relating with your environment like you used to. Maybe it's a relationship with a friend, a family member, a lover. But now it's time it's a different type of action with the third quarter, where we're just like, again, we're not necessarily starting up something new. We're doing something that's been needing to be dealt with for a while, something that we've been putting off. Maybe again, when you got to look to whatever theme this new moon started up in your house, wherever you had Pisces, where the seeding process had happened. So yeah, just some things I think to think about there. But I want to switch over here real quick because I want to talk about the Sabian symbol that the moon is at, because I found this one very interesting. This is phase 273 of Capricorn, and this talks about a human soul in its eagerness for new experiences seeks embodiment. And I like that. I like that to really, I think, embodies the Capricorn energy very well, that need to manifest, that need to be, to exist, to accomplish something material, something bigger than oneself, to give the universe, your section of the universe, form. And the keynote for this is a powerful yearning for whatever will increase the scope and depth of one's contacts with other living beings. And this is not just talking with just people, but with this environment, with this playground that is the earth. And I think that in order to we've come in this experience for one reason or another. And I think that one, there's this call for more consciousness of that. I was listening to something the other day, and I really kind of agreed with this person, where it was just like, something is changing. It's very tangible, and there's a lot of and where, I like to be very practical with the astrology and whatnot, but there is something unique going on here. There's something that if you just observe it, you can see it. It's not just something where you have to just take my word for it. Just pay attention to around you. There's stuff changing, and when you start showing up, and when I say showing up, it's just like cueing into the cycles that you intuitively know. You don't necessarily need the astrology or anything that to tell you what is your true calling. What is when you're walking in alignment with yourself, and when you start making those changes, you start seeing yourself in a different cycle, and how others are operating in a different sort of cycle, maybe leaning more onto the autopilot. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's sometimes life can get busy, but life is not so busy. I think that's just something too. I think it just maybe can feel a lot busier than we get credit for. But if we were to organize things and get stuff in structure, get stuff in order, Saturn, then you can embody a lot more. I find in this journey, it's not like it's taking, like, not necessarily taking from others, or like finally get, like, it's really just more so finally getting yours, and all that's available to you, and I think that there is more accountability that's being taken for that. Even if someone has done something to you, it's like, what, I'm going to, like, okay, got it, yeah, that happened, we're respectfully removing myself from that. I'm sending you love and light always, but I'm going to look at my part in that, and how did I allow that to happen? What situations led to things getting here? And then just using that as a tool going forward, So just some very, very, I think, a very interesting thing to think about with the Sabian symbol. And this may bring up might bring up some feelings around this stuff here. And, take the time and just, see what changes maybe come up with you during this time. It's just a little something to just kind of meditate on. But let's go ahead and get into your general energy of today. Let's switch to, let's get into a little bit of oppositions here. I even got a little message, because you got this hexagram before. This is hexagram 38, which is opposition here. It's fire over lake. And I'd even invite some people, maybe this opposition is going back to the full moon, because that's when the sun and moon are opposed to one another. So I think there's something maybe there that's needing to be revisited. I'd have to look at the video to see which one this hexagram was for when you got this last time. And that might even be something too, to look to the last video. I'll see if I can find in the description box or in the videos, and maybe put a link down for that video. Maybe there's something to check out there. But yeah, this one is oppositions, fire over lake. And the oracle for this is a flame set upon a lagoon. The two repel. And naturally, that fire and water energy. And this is a polarizing effect. The sage is not like the others, auspicious for small matters. Two sisters live in the same dwelling, but there is estrangement between them, a wall that divides. And this, to me, when it talks about the sage is not like the others, this could be you doing something, or maybe you're just noticing that maybe others are doing things that aren't like what you're doing. Maybe you're seeing people being more active, maybe embodying themselves more, whatever that is, maybe expressing themselves differently, making these declarations, these really big life changes and things like that. And you're just like, now there's a dissonance that's happening there. And that's what naturally happens when change occurs. There is always some sort of like opposing reaction to this thing, that wants you to maintain a certain type of way, to maintain a certain status quo. But I find with the cardinal signs, this is about new, fresh energy that we're initiating. This is something where we're sure Saturn is about long-term things, but the Earth has been here a long time, and it's always changing. Even the sky that's above us, it may look like it's doing, but it's moving. It's all sorts of activity going on. And this is the time, I think, to with it saying to auspicious for small matters, maybe you're doing these big changes, but maybe this is not making a big announcement about it. Maybe you're thinking about changing jobs and not, this could be not telling anyone. Maybe you're thinking about moving, and this is just like keeping it under wraps for right now. Because otherwise, I think that there will, of course, be that natural sort of dissonance that happens. And then there is a wall that divides, and then you become separated from the other, or something along those lines. But I do even get an energy, too, of if you're going to embody, if you're wanting to embody and experience more of this experience, there are certain things that are going to have to fall away. Otherwise you're just trying to the stuff just becomes heavier and heavier and heavier, I think, with Capricorn. And it can be where it just like starts just accumulating all these things, hoarding even. So I think that there's just like a little message there as well. And there are no changing lines in this one, so we're gonna just kind of go through the tarot and apply the messages as they make sense as we go through each of the themes here. So, but that's just some things I think just overall to just kind of contemplate over this last. Oh, and let me actually kind of adjust this thing and switch over. But yeah, I think that's just some kind of last things to just kind of meditate on here, as far as like, what are some things that maybe you've been putting off for a while? Maybe you've been meaning to put your application out there. Maybe you've been meaning to look at different places. Maybe you've been needing to have a conversation. And it might bring some opposition, but it might be the necessary need for you to do something different, because maybe something's been smothering your flame. That flame you're trying to start a fire on a lake. And where that sounds cool in theory, you need something more concrete, something more solid, a different sort of foundation to start something on here. So, that might be something to just kind of look at there as well, even though we may not be feeling like that, like doing that thing. But just some things to meditate on. And if you find yourself wanting to get any sort of reading, whether this be a tarot reading, an astrology reading, an I Ching reading, down in the description box is a link for all of the services that I provide. So, or not, no, there's not. There's a link for an email to get in touch with me. That's how it used to be. But there's a link for to get in touch with me, and we can talk about the different services that would deem appropriate for you, and then just kind of go from there. So, definitely check that out. But let's go ahead and get into the tarot. Now, I'm going to be pulling 6 cards, and each of them is going to be going over a different theme here. And like I said, considering we didn't have any specific changing lines, we're going to get maybe a clarifier on the card 5 and card 6 for any sort of immediate fears and any sort of like advice from Spirit. But the first card is going to be any sort of like short-term money matters or anything like that. And this is not financial advice or anything, but let's see what energies come up for you with that. Oh, fascinating. Okay. So you have the 6 of Swords here. And this to me could be where you've decided where you're going to put not just your money. Maybe you are allocating your money into differently. Maybe you're changing up your eating habits. Maybe you're changing up how you're maybe being a bit more frugal with your spending. Maybe you're thinking about planning a trip. Possibly this could be maybe taking some sort of trip. Maybe if you have it available, going on a trip on a boat, maybe on a ferry, something along those lines. Or maybe just even take like a walking trip along some water, maybe a pond, something, go by a fountain or something along those lines here. But there's just this energy here about needing to move to new horizons here. If this is not like a financial thing, this could be where maybe you're putting your energy towards something else. You're wanting to see a different future come to fruition there. You got a different sort of goal that you're wanting to focus on, and it's requiring a different level of discipline, something where maybe another person there is creating this bit of estrangement that's happening here. But I would say, even just thinking about looking at the first line here, talks about disappointments vanish, mourning the loss of a horse, do not chase after what will return on its own, encountering malevolent people, no harm sustained. So that gives me, even if you are planning something to sort of change as people who gets feeling some sort of way for at first, let them be. Just let them kind of process some things. Maybe it's coming at a bit of a shock. Maybe it's a bit of a shock for you. Maybe you waited to tell someone a little bit, to tell someone about this thing, or maybe it's vice versa. Someone can deliver some news to you, and it's just like, oh, I need to. Where I'm happy for you, like, but you're also leaving. So now, like, so that might be some feelings there. That's just some things that are kind of coming through on that one. But let's go ahead and get to your next card, which is going to be about any sort of medical matters. And this is not medical advice or anything, but maybe just some medical things that might be on your head there. But always consult with your doctors, your healers, anything along those lines. Oh, that's interesting. So you have the Four of Pentacles here. And I think that you've been getting the Four of Pentacles quite a bit, pretty consistently in the last couple readings. And this could be this could be maybe you're analyzing your money. This could be maybe even like a possible, like a changing of insurance, possibly. Maybe you're noticing where maybe you need a certain prescription and the insurance for it doesn't cover as much as you need to. So maybe you're looking at some other independent sort of things, or just looking at different plans. That's one thing that's kind of coming through there. Maybe this might even thinking about maybe adjusting your finances towards more sort of like healthier things. Possibly, maybe you're looking into different sort of like, I was actually just reading something. I'm gonna be doing some more research on it. So, and I'd invite you to do the same. There's an astrologer who I really enjoy, and Astrology. She's great, and she put this post about this thing, diatomaceous earth, and I got a tab open for it. It's in my orbit, because I love that kind of health stuff. I got a loaded first house, and so I'm all about any sort of like health things I'm with. We're working with nature and whatnot. But that's what I'm thinking. That's another feeling that's coming through there. Maybe you're looking at something along those lines. I'm even thinking too here that just paying attention to what you are storing in the body. Since we're in this kind of Capricorn energy, maybe again there's been some kind of like maybe junk or something that you've been needing to let go. Maybe you need to look at just like what's been fueling the body here, and there might even be something here about like maybe almost feeling like you're at the, like almost like a slave to the body or something like that, where it just seems like all the stuff seems to go into your health or something like that. So it's like, what are some ways that you can improve on that? So that's just another thing that's just kind of coming through there with that Four of Pentacles. And again, maybe that's going on short trips. Maybe you're instead of like taking a bus, maybe you're going to walk to certain places, or like walking to the store instead of like whatever that might be looking, if that's something that's available. But let's talk about the next energies here, because this is going to deal with any sort of legal matters, social affairs, but this is not legal advice or anything. Talk to your lawyers. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned, these readings that I do, they're not gender-specific readings, so apply these energies to people as they make sense for your situations. But that's all I got there. Oh, look at Saturn. Got the world here. And this, to me, I'm getting a couple of things with this. This could be maybe you're coming to the end of a certain legal case. Maybe there was some sort of like medical suit. Maybe it's the medical lawsuit that was going on, possibly, that maybe be coming to a close. Maybe there was some sort of like, some sort of like maybe like not malpractice, but maybe it is, but something where there was just like negligence somewhere. Maybe this happened where you found something at like a restaurant, or like maybe there's like food poisoning somewhere. I'm not quite sure what that is, but you could maybe find yourself reaching some sort of settlement here, maybe with the world being here. I'm also getting to where this could be, as far as like in terms of like social affairs, this could be where maybe you're ending some contracts, where you're being more maybe stingy with your time. And this doesn't feel like a bad, like a selfish thing. This is just be where maybe you're just giving out all of yourself with this Four of Pentacles here. And And now it's like, you know what, I need to give more to myself. And in order to do that, maybe a certain relationship or something, we're moving in a different dynamic here. It doesn't even necessarily have to mean something is ending, but maybe we're ending a way a certain way was done, and we're starting into a new sort of thing. And now we're kind of on uncharted, or we're in uncharted waters here right now with the Six of Swords being here. So that could be something that is kind of potentially coming up there. I'm with that. All right, let's get to the next one, which talks about romantic matters and any sort of like marriage stuff. And this could be just like relationships in general. This is loose. All right, so you have... Is that a lizard hanging from there? Oh, no, it's the thing is carrying the lizard. Okay, so you got the Knight of Wands here. And you know, the fact that I was being drawn to that lizard, I'm almost getting this thing here about feeling kind of dragged to and fro. That's very interesting. Maybe you find yourself, how do I describe that? It's almost like maybe you find yourself in this, maybe you're wanting to date more, and maybe that's what this is. Maybe you done snatched somebody up. Like, so I would just be mindful of the Knight of Wands. Maybe we're moving a little fast here, maybe, you know, but I think that there is a need maybe for some movement here. Maybe just someone coming to grab you up. Whatever that's looking like. Someone's coming in hot, coming in fast, maybe coming in a little heavy. And this could be where we're just like, all right, let me guard the bank. So just something I think to think about. They're not just maybe shelling out all the resources there. Maybe this is, instead of having dinner, maybe we have lunch first. let's do this in daylight, and then go from there. You know, kind of take it easy, enjoy the process. Let this be fun. With the Knight of Wands there, let it be. You know, I got a lot of laughter in that. So let there be this thing where the energy is moving, but it's more of an excitement. But we don't feel like we need to rush or need to like grip for dear life here. You know, like just let something kind of take forth naturally here, not trying to just do it just to win. Because the thing with this is that I think there's, you know, you want to be mindful of consistency with the Knight of Wands. That's something that's coming through here too. That's where, you know, and I get that people change and things, but if you go from being like one person to like a whole other person, you know, where it was like, I remember having this conversation with someone who, you know, they were talking with their partner, like when they were first dating, they would like buy flowers and do all these things. But as soon as they got together, like the flowers stopped. And then like, you know, instead of like romantic dinners was, what are we gonna Uber Eats? And it's just like, no, no, homie, let's not do that. You know, what happened to that guy where you were buying, you know, getting a flower or something like that. And it's like, and there was they were talking about it from like a reciprocity sort of state too. Like if that's what you're giving, then that's what you're getting. But if that, you know, so that's something there too, I think, to just kind of pay attention to with that Knight of Wands. Now let's get to the fifth card here, which deals about any sort of immediately pressing affairs at the moment. What might be just currently on your mind. Or maybe that just needs to be dealing with. And yes, that's exactly what we need to be dealing with. The sun. So, you know, your only immediately pressing affair is to feel joyful, to feel happy, to feel bliss, to follow in your light. To follow in your path, especially if you feel like you've been maybe in a bit of darkness here lately. This could be just seeing that and just like, you know, the sunflowers they face towards the sun. You know, they follow the sun. And I think that there's this need to remember to follow your light, to get back in center with oneself. Let me get a clarifier. Let's get a clarifier on the sun here. So that's nice. Oh, how fascinating. Here's Capricorn. You got the devil here. And so, this could be where, and this doesn't necessarily just have to be any sort of like addictions. This could be where maybe something you've been feeling like again, like I mentioned that earlier, where you're feeling like a slave to something, where you're being controlled by something. But I think that just as you give to this thing, that you can, the devil, it's not just about the addictions, it's to work. If there is an addiction, you work through them. You work and do different things to bring them to an end, to overcome these things. Yeah, the devil can be tough, and these are themes that are going to be constantly kind of pressing on this happiness. And this could just be maybe just generally feeling good on a base level here. And so this could be just like doing work into doing things that fuel that sunlight here. Seeing what you're putting in the bank. It really kind of ties back to this Four of Pentacles there. Because just a little fun fact, the Four of Pentacles is the sun in Capricorn. So you got the sun here, Capricorn, the devil. And so these cards will correspond with this Four of Pentacles here. Yeah, pay attention to where you're giving your time to, how you're giving your energies to something. All right, let's get the last energy here. Hold on. Let me actually go here. And one last thing I just kind of was drawn. I just thought about the hexagram in all of this. That it speaks of shouldering regrets from the past and misfortune. And when the omen reveals a path forward, with going forward carry blame. And this could be maybe you're overcoming like something where you've noticed where, let's say this is a relationship and there was some toxicity that was going, some just like not so great behavior that was happening, that was diminishing that sunlight. I'm thinking of that. I think it's Rihanna, where she's like, "I've been given that sunshine. I think it's time for me to take that back." Like something that's coming through there, and it's like there's something here about maybe you've even being surprised about how fast you get over something. And that maybe even feeling good. I think that sometimes we can think that how are we going to find the light outside of this thing when that's been something that's been fueling us for so long. But then we get on the other side of it and get some distance between it. And it's just like, oh, that's what that is. Let's get to the last card, which talks about the destiny or the karma, consequences of the choices. Ooh. All right. Some big energies here. You got the Tower. And so, I'm being brought even to the one before, the where you got the jolt, where I was talking about little baby tower here. But now the real tower, Mars, is here. And I think that there's a change happening. This may be one where, especially with this related to the sixth line, that talks about isolated and lonely, seeing the pig smeared with mud, transporting the ghost in a chariot. First you draw a bow and then you lay aside your bow. They are not bandits, only here to take a bride. The forward journey will be met with rainfall. Fortune and prosperity come after all. And it just seems like maybe whatever this situation is, there may be a lot that ends up going on here. These choices that you decide to end, and so when people get upset and it seems like the world's ending and how could you and blah 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 and all these things, but then you get through the situation, you're getting your footing again, and you realize that change was worth it it was worth it. That this was a divine, some sort of divine intervention in a sense. But this is just like there's something that's changing here with the Tower. A realization that something's not as stable as you think it is. The foundation of it is needing of an evaluation here. But let's get a clarifier with the Tower. And I'd even be mindful about carrying the situation with you. About bringing those ghosts transporting the ghosts in the chariot. Leave that stuff behind. The situation happened, and look, you got the Five of Pentacles in reverse here. And so I'm getting this is not meant to be something where it's meant to keep you out and down. You know, if there's a certain change that's happening here, maybe you're noticing just an opposition in yourself where it's just like this isn't working. You know, like I feel more. Yeah, man, it's interesting what this is giving me. I even feel like just like that tower's bringing an end to some sort of to like an end of a personal winter, like a suffering in a sense. Yeah, but I think a change. Yeah, something's needing to is. Hmm. Let's get some advice from Saturn. Hmm. All right, so you have the Moon card here, and let's go ahead and switch over. And this is confusion. This is kind of swimming through. Yeah, this is swimming through uncharted waters. Like not quite sure where things are going. A time where you're probably going to need to just kind of sit still for a moment. Because I find even when things seem dire, that's when you need to pause. And when you do, the clarity comes, because if once you're swept up in the chaos of it and the tower of it, like I said, that hexagram seemed pretty locked in place for. I think that, so whatever change is happening, I think it's happening. But I don't think that it, again, it's like it's not like a fate sealed. It's just like there's an uncertainty about where it's going. You're in this darkness right now. It may seem scary, might seem kind of frightening here, but there's an owl in the face of that moon. Something, spirits watching. Your guides here. This owl's looking a little wild, but it's watching. It's protecting. And this is the time where it's like paying attention to any sort of like primal responses with the moon, and how to keep yourself, and that anyone is subject to this confusion in tower times and things like that too. So this is not like a personal attack. That's something just is kind of coming through there too. But seems like a lot just kind of weighing over these maybe couple of days there, or however long this may be kind of leaning into whenever you come across this message. But something to think about. But if you like that, if anything resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. I think I'm gonna pull out of that. And if you if oh, and share this if you know somebody who would get any kind of nuggets of wisdom from this. And then subscribe there, you son. Hit that bell button, get notified on these videos each day. And I'm gonna shuffle for your surprise cards here. But if you want to know what's going on with the other celestial bodies, down in the description box is a link for my other channel, Alchemist 8, where I do weekly videos every Mercury day talking about the transits and how to work with the energies, what are some things to look forward to, and what portions of your chart that this energy might be coming up in. And then I have this series that I'm doing of different planetary placements in different signs in different houses. So saying, and I got them all separated by playlists, so you can check to see if I've done the one for you. I have these like 12-sided dice that I roll, and Spirit just lets me know what we're doing, and we just go from there. So doing the North Node, a lot of North Node energy right now, so that's interesting. But all that's available for you. But let's go ahead and get into your surprise card here, and that's interesting. So you got the leadership card here, and with with all this stuff that seems like that may be kind of coming up here, depending on what your question was or what guidance you were looking for, that you are like there's a need to take charge in all of this. And in being in control of you, where it may feel like a situation like external things are outside of your control, then control what you can, which is you. Figure out how to regulate in this, how to show up in this. What are some practices that you can do to help yourself feel like you have some kind of footing in all of this thing? Because it seems like the dominoes have been, the glass is broken, the thing is done here. So now it's just the after effect. And I think that this is where the test comes in. It's like, how do you rise up in this situation? Do you let it just beat you down and feel defeated? And that's fine if you need to go lick your wounds. I'm just picturing this cat just sometimes that happens. Sometimes things really do they catch you off guard in a way that is just like, you got to take as much time. I'm not saying you hurry up before the moon gets out of Capricorn. That's not realistic. But give yourself, figure out what that time is. Take some sort of, get the reins back. Figure out, what, I'm going to give this amount of time, and then I'm going to put this to an end. There was a period of time, like, geez, maybe a few months ago, where I was like, what, there's a lot going on, and I'm just not going to make any, like, not in making any sort of decisions. It was just like, what, I'm just going to let the world be for a minute, and I'm going to figure out what's going on here. And I just was just with that for a bit, and I got out of it. It took me a couple days, and I'm just like, okay, now let's keep the practices going, keep the things, and yeah. So, and in that, you may need to be too. Maybe this is something that's a little bit bigger that's happening, and people may need someone to look to in this situation. And this could be where you show up and show out. Where you really kind of shine bright and come across as a force, as someone who can take charge. So it's a valuable skill to have in a moon card situation. So, and tower. So yeah, just some things to ponder. I'm with that. But until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep eyes on that moon. And I will catch you on the next one. Moon Day.